The Lord be with you. A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Luke. As Jesus and his disciples were proceeding on their journey, someone said to him, "I will follow you wherever you go." Jesus answered him, "Foxes have dens and birds of the sky have nests, but the Son of Man has nowhere to rest his head." And to another he said, "Follow me." But he replied, "Lord, let me go first and bury my father." But he answered him, "Let the dead bury their dead. But you go and proclaim the kingdom of God." And another said, "I will follow you, Lord, but first let me say farewell to my family at home." Jesus answered him, "No one who sets a hand to the plow and looks to what was left behind is fit for the kingdom of God." The Gospel of the Lord. Today is the feast of St. Jerome. St. Jerome he's famous as a doctor of the church because he translated the entire Bible. He translated it into Latin. So the Old Testament is largely written in what language? Greek. Very good. Or the Old Testament is largely written in Hebrew. Sorry. The New Testament is written in what language? Greek. Very good. He translated it into Latin. So he's very well known for that. He was also known for his personality, which is one of the reasons why I really like him. I kind of have some affinities. He was kind of an irascible person sometimes. He had strong opinions about the church, and so oftentimes he would get into arguments. He's very famous for getting into an argument with St. Augustine, for example. St. Jerome, part of something else with his personality is that for most of his life he lived as a hermit, someone who lives by themselves in a cave. And many people in church history, when they decide to live as a hermit, it's because they want the solitude and they want to be able to focus entirely on God. St. Jerome certainly had part of that, but it was also because people just didn't want to be around him. So he was a hermit because he didn't have a whole lot of friends. But even then, despite his personal issues, he's still a saint of the church. So there's hope for all of us. But I do want to focus on the gospel today. Jesus, in this passage, we see some of the extreme nature of Jesus. Two people asked to go and follow him. And they say, "First, let me bury my dead family members." The second person says, "Yes, I want to follow you, but first let me say farewell to my family." And Jesus says, "No one who sets a hand to the plow and looks to what was left behind is fit for the kingdom of God." And think about it. These two people are willing to drop everything and follow him, but first they just have to tie up some loose ends. For Jesus, that isn't good enough. It's kind of extreme. There's a virtue that we as Christians hold that is not very talked about. It's the virtue of alacrity. Anybody familiar with the word alacrity? Alacrity is this Christian virtue. And it's the virtue of being willing to drop everything and follow where the Lord calls. One of the ways I think about this, I don't know if any of you know any permanent deacons. Permanent deacons are a great example of alacrity. Do you know that permanent deacons, they don't receive any compensation from the diocese when they become deacons? And they go through a very long formation process. And as you know, becoming a deacon, it's not just affects the man, it affects his entire family. So, for example, there's a deacon in our diocese who was a very successful attorney, and he gave up his practice to pursue becoming a deacon. And so his wife actually didn't work, and she had to come out of that retirement and take on a full-time job so that he could become a deacon. All for the sake of him putting in all of that time and prayer, and then he becomes a deacon and does all this work for the church and receives no compensation. It seems foolish in the eyes of the world. Why would someone do this? Well, he and his wife, they felt the call, and they were willing to leave those things behind. Sometimes when I talk to young men and young women who are discerning a vocation to the priesthood or religious life, this thing comes up as well. Oftentimes the biggest obstacle to them joining the seminary or joining the convent is their family. Because their family thinks, well, first go to college. Make sure you get a degree first or work for a while. We want to make sure that you have your ducks in a row. And yet Jesus is calling those young people to alacrity. even in the face of their family sometimes. You and I experience that, I'm sure. Friends and family. There are times where disagreements come up or tensions because of our faith. And Jesus challenges us to have alacrity. Are we willing to sacrifice some of those attachments for the sake of following Him? Remember, I experienced that a lot when I was in high school. When I began to get into my faith, I lost a lot of my friends. Or rather, I would say that I started spending time with other people. Every single day, all of us has opportunities. There are times that Jesus beckons us and summons us to follow Him, to give up our time, to sacrifice our attachments. And every day we are called to renew ourselves to that. I just want to share one story of alacrity to close this homily, and it's a beautiful example for me. One of my priest heroes in seminary, he was the rector at my college seminary, and he was a very strong personality, and he was a great preacher. And one Saturday morning at daily Mass, he gave a homily about alacrity. And he was preaching. He was saying all of us need to be ready to go every single day to follow Jesus, to leave everything else behind, and to go where He beckons us. You know what? That day, he went back to his rectory, and he had a heart attack, and he died. He was ready to go to the Lord. Beautiful. This virtue of alacrity is a great thing for all of us to reflect on and to ask God to give us more strength and courage to have that alacrity and follow Him wherever He beckons us.